Alhamdulillahi Rabbil Alameen. Sallallahu wasallam wa baraka ala nabiyina Muhammadin wa ala alihi wa sahbihi ajma'in. Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, and good morning Instagram fam, friends and followers of as-Saafiy, and welcome to another episode of Revert Reflections. Today we continue our presentation of ways to maintain and nurture our relationship with our kids, to maintain a relationship, the child-parent relationship. And I want to mention this morning three means, three ways, three approaches, three tactics, if you will. The first of them is to be more attentive and actively involved in the lives of our kids. Brothers and sisters, we are all busy. Very few people can say, I just have a bunch of free time on my hands. I'm never doing anything. I'm always free to get coffee. I'm always free to just, go play some rounds of golf. Most of us have more things to do than we have time in a day. That is the nature of life in the modern age. But what we have to take a step back and do is we have to look at our life and make sure that we're not so busy that we don't have time and we can't make time to interact with our kids, and to actively keep our finger on the pulse of their physical, emotional, and most importantly, their spiritual state. And what this is going to mean, because if we really look at our lives and we really look at how we're spending our time, we're going to see that we can make time if we really want to make time. You make time for the things which are important to you. And if we really want to make time for our kids, which should be extremely important to us, and we talked about the importance of this relationship, it being the most important relationship after our relationship with Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala. If it really means something to us, we can make time. But what's that going to mean? It's going to mean putting away our devices and taking the devices away from our kids. One of the things that consumes a great deal of our time, brothers and sisters, is the device. And if you just monitor the amount of time you spend on your device each day, if you actually pay attention, every time you pick up your device and you spend some time on it, annotate the amount of time you spend, and then look at that, compare that to the amount of hours in a day, subtracting the time that you take to sleep, subtracting the time you take to sleep, subtracting the time you take to eat, the time you take to shower, the times when you can actively do things. How much of that time do you spend on what? On the device. And you're going to find a lot of people, they spend a lot of time on the device, time that they could spend with their loved ones, particularly their kids. Many times we're together at the dinner table. We're together in the living room. The TV is on. We're supposed to be watching something together, for example. And instead of actively watching what we're supposed to be watching together, people are sitting there on their device. Instead of actively talking over dinner, people are on their device, right? We're in the car going someplace. People are on their devices. We check out from each other and check into what? Into the devices. So one of the things we have to do in order to be more interactive with one another is put the devices away and take them away from our kids and actively do things together. And there's any number of things we could do together. We could make dinner together. We could watch the evening news together. We could do some type of arts and craft project together. We can go outside and garden together. What we do is not as important as doing it together. Actively talking to each other, getting to know our kids and what's going on with them, and actively connecting with them. A lot of parents do not know their kids. They're living with complete strangers. They don't know their kids don't know them. Why? Because we don't interact. We interact with the devices. We don't interact with each other. One thing we need to be doing in order to have this maintenance of our relationship and to nurture this relationship is we need to what? We need to actively be attentive to each other and connect with each other, which means what? Putting the devices away, doing things together. Another very important point as it relates to relationship maintenance with our kids or between children and parents is to be affectionate and to show and tell our kids that we love them. And this is difficult for many of us. It's particularly difficult for fathers. Many fathers struggle with expressing their emotions and being vulnerable. And so a lot of fathers don't tell their kids that they love them. And this was a problem during the time of the Prophet ﷺ, to the point that the Prophet ﷺ, in the presence of some of the Arabs, he would kiss his children. And they would be aghast that the Prophet would kiss them. And he would say that they would say to him things like, you kiss your kids? I have 10 kids. I've never kissed any one of them. And the Prophet would actually say things in response to that, like, what can I do if Allah has removed compassion and mercy from your heart? He would basically say that you're a compassionless person. There's a fault in you if you can't show affection to your kids. And so it's very important for us to be affectionate and loving to our kids, not just to tell them, but to actively show them how much we love them. Give them hugs, give them kisses, go out with them and hold their hand, right? We need to do those things which show our kids how much we love them. And this is the example of the Prophet ﷺ with his daughter Fatima. Doesn't mean he wasn't like that with his other kids, but particularly with his daughter Fatima. Aisha radiallahu anha, she mentions in the hadith, كتب أبو داود رضي الله عنه رحمه الله تعالى, that she says, كانت إذا دخلت عليه قام إليها فأخذ بيدها وقبلها وأجلسها في مجلسه وكان إذا دخل عليها قامت إليه فأخذت بيده فقبلته وأجلسته في مجلسها. So Aisha, she mentions about the relationship between Fatima and the Prophet ﷺ, this amazing dynamic that they had, affectionate dynamic. She says, when she came to visit him, whenever Fatima came to visit him, no matter what he was doing, no matter who he might be entertaining, no matter what he might be studying or teaching, right? Whenever she came to visit the Prophet, he would get up to welcome her. He would be excited. He would be clearly happy to see her. He would make it clear to her that he was happy to see her. He took her by the hand, kissed her, and made her sit where he was sitting. Look, this is where I was sitting. This is my special place to sit, but no, I want you to sit there. Look how he honored her. Look how he made her feel special. Fathers don't do this enough to their kids. They don't do this enough for their daughters, particularly. But the Prophet ﷺ is showing us, he's our examples. Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala says, لَقَدْ كَانَ لَكُمْ فِي رَسُولِ اللَّهِ أُسْوَةٌ حَسَنَةٌ. You have in the Messenger of Allah the best role model, the best example of conduct and character and how to behave and how to carry on. This is how he was with his daughter, but didn't stop there. She was also like that to her father. And this is important too, that this love and this affection shouldn't flow just one way. And this is important for us, those of us who are in a position to teach kids this. Because it's difficult for parents to teach their kids, hey, this is how you should respect me, this is how you should honor me. Because they have a vested interest, the kids will tune them out and think you're only saying this because you have something to what? To gain. And so people who are disinterested third parties who see that, hey, this person isn't honoring their father or their mother the way they should pull their coat to that and tell them, hey, that's not how you deal with your father. That's not how you talk to your father. That's not how you honor your father. That's not how you respond to your father when he enters, when he comes home from working and slaving to take care of you and provide for you. You don't act like what? Like nothing happened. You don't dismiss him like he didn't come in unless you want something. It's important that this flows both ways. So look at the other side of it. Says, Aisha, she goes on and says, and when he went to visit her, when the Prophet ﷺ would come to the home of Fatima, she got up to welcome him. She wasn't dismissive. She would actively get up and welcome him. Took him by the hand, kissed him, and made him sit where she was sitting. And so she honored him and showed affection to him in kind. And so this is very important. This dynamic, this relationship between our kids, we should actively be affectionate. If it's not our thing, if we're not accustomed to it, if it's not something that comes natural, then we have to learn it. We have to learn this behavior and train ourselves to be like this with our kids, to show them how much we love them. And we can't understand, we can't even imagine or fathom the effects of this, the positive effects on our kids, that we may not necessarily see, but how much they appreciate and how we are helping to form them and make them functioning human beings, particularly capable of functioning in relationships by teaching them how to what? To openly and freely express their love and affection for those that they love and have an affinity for. But last but not least for today, at least from the tactics for relationship maintenance in the child-parent relationship and how to nurture that relationship is avoid various forms of abuse. Now, abuse, brothers and sisters, it can take many forms. It can be emotional, it can be psychological, it can be verbal, it can be physical. And all of these forms, we have to understand, leave scars and can drive a wedge between us and our kids. Sometimes, brothers and sisters, something as simple as comments and remarks which we say jokingly. We intend for them to just be a joke. We're just trying to be funny. We're just being humorous. We're just playing around, right? And we say these things with innocent intentions. But these small statements that we make, just kidding, just joking with our kids, especially nowadays, as I said yesterday, I said one of the things we need to realize and we need to adapt to is that just things have changed. The environment has changed and the mentality of kids has changed. You know, people just nowadays generally are just far more sensitive than they used to be when many of us were coming up. People are a lot more thin-skinned, hypersensitive than they used to be. And our kids are not an exception to that rule, right? And so some of our kids are really, really sensitive and we don't realize how sensitive they are. Now we're saying something just jokingly, we're just kidding around, and they take it to heart and they become embittered, and it sows the seeds of resentment between the child and the parent. And we don't even realize what's going on. We don't realize that child is beginning to withdraw from us. That child has developed a certain level of dislike for us, maybe even hatred for us. They resent us because of something we said and we were just kidding and we didn't even think anything of it. We didn't even realize that it had that effect on that child, left that scar on that child, and has driven a wedge between us and that child. Now that doesn't mean, I want to make this point really clear, that doesn't mean there's no place in the household and in the child-parent dynamic for discipline, chastising. That basically a parent may be put in a situation where they feel that the way to correct a child's behavior is to, chastise them. And we shouldn't think as parents, this thing too, we can't be gun shy. If this is what we feel is appropriate to discipline a child in a particular situation, then we have to understand that that's an option for us. And we can't be afraid. We talked about this previously. We can't be afraid of our kids. We can't be afraid of our kids and afraid to parent our kids and put ourselves in a situation where the kids are in the driver's seat because we're so worried about upsetting them that we don't do what our role as parents requires. And there are a few hadith where the Prophet ﷺ, he authorized parents to chastise their kids. One of them we mentioned last week, the hadith where he said, "Allimu sibyanakum as-salat wa hum ulad 7 sinin, wadribuhum 'alayha wa hum ulad 10 sinin." He said that teach your children the prayer, or your young ones the prayer, and when they're 7 years old, and when they reach the age of 10, if they don't pray, then you do what? Then you chastise them for not praying. And so we're authorized to do this. There's also a hadith where the Prophet was purported to have said, and there's difference of opinion about this from the scholars, whether or not this hadith is authentic, where he said, he told the parents to hang their switch, to leave their switch hanging, indicating that they shouldn't always be hitting their kids, but the switch is there for them to use when appropriate. Al-Muhim, so there's a place for discipline, but we need to understand also that we need to be strategic and not over-rely on chastising as a means to correct our kids' behavior and indicate our displeasure. We can't be over-relying on that. That as soon as something happens that we don't like, our first mind, our first reaction, our knee-jerk reaction is to what? Is to hit. Our knee-jerk reaction is to say something what? That cuts like a knife. We shouldn't do that. We need to be strategic because pretty soon, the more you use it, if you overuse it, if you over-rely on it, it loses its effectiveness. They just tune you out. And no matter how much you hit, no matter how much you call them names, no matter how much you raise your voice, it does not have the desired effect. Why? Because they become numb to it. They become desensitized. And so we have to be careful about that. So these are 3 methods and means to nurture our relationship with our kids that we mentioned today. And inshallah ta'ala we'll mention more tomorrow. Just to recap, we said to be attentive, to be more actively involved in our kids' lives. We said that we need to be affectionate with our kids. And we said we need to avoid various forms of abuse. And with that, brothers and sisters, we'll bring today's session to a close. And until tomorrow, as always, we ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to bless your houses, to bless your spouses, to bless your children, to bless your sources of livelihood and income, to bless you and make you blessed wherever you may be. We ask Allah subhanahu wa ta'ala to make us from those who listen to the talk and follow the best of it. هذا وصلى الله وسلم وبارك على نبينا محمد وعلى آله وصحبه أجمعين. السلام عليكم ورحمة الله وبركاته.